The air felt heavier. Cameras zoomed in. Soldiers gripped their weapons. Scientists held their breath. And then, she appeared. Tall, graceful, glowing faintly under Earth's sun. Princess Lyra of the Ziralon Empire walked down the ramp. Her royal armor sparkled with blue energy lines. A long silver cape flowed behind her. Her sharp violet eyes scanned the crowd, trained to spot weakness, trained to command fear. This was Earth's first contact with the Ziralon people. The entire planet was watching. She had been told humans were wild, dangerous, unpredictable. But they were also clever. And today they were expected to show respect. Lyra paused on the final step, her chin raised. She waited for a ceremonial bow. But instead, a human man walked forward. No helmet, no weapons, just a casual jacket and a strange, calm smile. His name was Jake Carter, Earth's representative, but he looked more like a traveler than a leader. Lyra narrowed her eyes. He didn't kneel. He didn't raise a hand. He didn't say a word. Then, to her complete shock, he hugged her. The crowd gasped. Alien guards reached for their blasters. Lyra's eyes widened. Every nerve in her body screamed danger. A hug? This close? Without permission. In Ziralon culture, physical contact was rare, even among family. Touch was sacred. A gesture like this was unheard of. Could start a war. But Jake didn't seem to care. His arms were gentle. His voice calm. "Welcome to Earth," he said softly. "We don't do ceremonies. We do warmth." Lyra stood frozen. Her mind raced. She had trained with warlords, studied diplomacy, memorized hundreds of alien languages. But no one had prepared her for this, a human hug. She stepped back slowly, heart pounding. "Is this how you show power?" she asked. Jake laughed. "No, this is how we show peace." The translator buzzed. Her guards looked confused. One of them whispered in Ziralon, "Should we respond with force?" Lyra didn't answer. She just stared at Jake. He was strange. He was soft. But somehow he wasn't weak. She felt unsettled. Not afraid, but not in control either. Jake held out a bottle of water. "You've traveled far," he said. "Want to sit and talk?" Lyra nodded slowly. They walked together through the landing site. Jake spoke about Earth, its people, nature, food, and cities. His tone was simple, honest. No tricks, no games. But Lyra remained on edge. Something about him was different. Too open, too unguarded, too human. That night, she sat alone in the guest chamber of the Earth Embassy. Her guards stood outside the door, silent and angry. Lyra opened her hollow journal. Day 1. Humans are not what I expected. They are not formal. They are not cold. They lead with emotion, not protocol. One of them touched me. No, hugged me. It made me feel something strange. Something warm. This could be dangerous. She closed the log and walked to the window. Outside, Jake was talking to children. One handed him a picture of her, drawn with crayons. No fear, just wonder. Princess Lyra, the future ruler of 1,000 planets, whispered to herself. What kind of strength is this that comes without armor? She didn't know it yet. But that hug had already shaken the future. And the real test was just beginning. She replayed the moment again and again, his arms, the warmth, the feeling. It made no sense. Princess Lyra sat alone in her room, eyes fixed on the stars outside. Her body was still, but her thoughts moved like a storm. The hug. What did it mean? Why had it affected her so deeply? Her training told her it was a breach of protocol, a mistake, a sign of weakness. But her heart whispered something else, something she didn't understand. Jake Carter, the human who had hugged her, was strange. He didn't act like a leader. He didn't show fear or try to impress her. He just smiled, offered help, and spoke with calm honesty. That made him more dangerous. Lyra stood up and activated her wrist scanner. A glowing map of the human embassy appeared. Jake was still awake, talking with engineers in the tech lab. She decided to observe. Silently, she moved through the halls, her cloak brushing the floor. She stayed in the shadows, watching him from a distance. He wasn't giving orders. He was fixing something, a broken machine. He worked with his hands. He joked with the others. He helped, not commanded. Lyra's brow furrowed. On Xyrilon, leaders gave commands. They didn't fix tools. They didn't laugh with workers. They stood above them. But Jake seemed equal with his people. Respected, not feared. That idea was strange to her. The next day, Jake invited her to walk through a local earth park. It was calm. Green trees, birds singing, children playing. Jake pointed to a flower. "This one only blooms after a storm," he said. "Kind of like people." Lyra looked at him. "You speak in riddles." He smiled. "Not riddles, just truth in a softer shape." They sat on a bench. Lyra hesitated, then asked, "Why did you hug me?" Jake looked surprised. "Because you looked nervous. Where I'm from, hugs help people feel safe. But I am not human." Jake nodded. "Doesn't matter. You're still a person." That answer stunned her. She was used to being seen as royalty, a symbol, a future ruler. Not a person. She looked at the humans around her. So open, so emotional. They cried when they were sad, laughed freely, hugged without fear. How could such soft people survive in a galaxy full of enemies? Unless their strength was hidden. That night, she met with her bodyguard, Commander Zelm. "You're getting too close to him," he warned. "You forget your mission." "I forget nothing," she replied. "You didn't stop the hug. You let him speak to you casually. You walked with him in a public park. The council is watching." Lyra turned away. And what have they learned from watching? Nothing. These humans, they are not what we expected. They are weak. "No," she said firmly. "They are different." Zelm narrowed his eyes. "Difference is dangerous." Lyra didn't answer. She felt something shift inside her. Not betrayal. Not rebellion. Just curiosity. What if everything she had learned about power was wrong? Later, Jake sent her a small gift. A hand-drawn map of Earth, filled with stars, flowers, and strange little jokes. At the bottom, he had written, "Next time I'll ask before hugging. But I hope one day you'll do it first." She stared at the note for a long time. No human weapon had ever made her feel fear. But this small message of kindness, it shook her more than a battlefield. For the first time in her life, she didn't know what to do next. She was no longer just a guest. She had become an observer, and humans were her study. Princess Lyra woke early. She hadn't slept well. Strange dreams kept her restless, dreams of hugs, of soft voices, of humans laughing without fear. It made her uncomfortable, confused, curious. She decided it was time to understand them better, not through reports but with her own eyes. Dressed in plain robes instead of her royal armor, she slipped away from the embassy and followed Jake through the city from a distance. He didn't know she was watching. He wasn't meeting generals. He wasn't attending secret briefings. Instead, he visited a small community center, a place filled with children, old people, and local workers. Jake sat beside a boy drawing on the floor. He helped carry food boxes to a kitchen. He fixed a broken chair with nothing but tape and a smile. Lyra watched, hidden in plain sight. Every movement Jake made seemed simple, kind, soft. But Lyra noticed something deeper. People trusted him. They listened when he spoke. They smiled when he arrived. And they followed him without force, without fear. This was not weakness. This was something else. This was power through respect. Later that afternoon, Jake walked into a small park. He looked up, as if he sensed her presence. Lyra stepped out from the shadows. "You were following me," he said, smiling. "I was observing," she replied calmly. Jake sat on a bench and patted the spot beside him. "And what have you observed?" Lyra sat, slowly. "You do not lead like Xyrilon leaders. You do not use force. You do not demand. And yet, your people obey. Because they know I care," Jake said. "Not just about results, but about them." Lyra tilted her head. "You fix chairs, carry food, play with children. That is not leadership." Jake shrugged. "Maybe not where you're from, but here, real leaders lift others up." His words sank deep into her mind. She remembered how, on Xiralon, leaders stood on tall platforms, above everyone else. No smiles, no kindness, only orders. She had never questioned it until now. Back at the embassy, her bodyguard Zeln was waiting. His eyes narrowed when he saw her without her armor. "You've been walking without protection?" he growled. "With him. I was learning," she answered. "Humans are not weak. They are strange, but strong in ways we never measured." Zeln clenched his fists. "He is soft. His people are soft. That will get them killed." Lyra turned to him. "Or maybe it will save them." The room fell silent. For the first time, she had challenged her protector's belief. Zeln shook his head. "You're becoming too close. The council will not approve." "I don't care what they approve," she said quietly. "I care about what is true." That night, Jake gave her a strange gift. An earth book, old, made of paper. The cover showed a simple word, hope. She flipped through the pages. Stories of loss, pain, joy, rebuilding. Human stories, messy, but beautiful. Jake said, "We've made mistakes, big ones, but we keep trying. That's what makes us human." Lyra looked at him. "And what makes you strong?" Jake didn't answer. He just pointed at her heart. Alone in her room, she looked at her reflection. Princess Lyra, warrior of the stars, trained in honor and battle. Now she was watching humans laugh, cry, fall and rise again, and realizing they were not what she had been taught. Her report to the council remained unwritten, because for the first time, she didn't know what side she was on anymore. The message came in silence. No sound, no light, just a signal hidden in shadows. Princess Lyra sat by the window, watching Earth's moon rise again. Her hands held the human book Jake had given her. She had read parts of it over and over. She didn't fully understand why, but the words touched something inside her. Then her wrist communicator blinked red. It was a hidden channel only for royal use. She opened it carefully. A blue hologram appeared. The face of High Chancellor Vexer, leader of the Xiralon Council. His voice was cold. "Princess Lyra, you have not submitted your report. Your silence is troubling. Our scans show you are blending too closely with the humans. You were sent to study, not to sympathize." Lyra kept her face calm. "I am learning, Chancellor." "Good. Then learn this. If you do not confirm Earth's weakness within 2 cycles, the fleet will arrive. This planet will fall. We cannot risk human influence spreading across the stars." Her eyes widened. "You plan to destroy them?" "Only if we must." The hug was the first warning. They do not follow structure. They are dangerous. The hologram flickered and vanished. Lyra sat still. She felt sick. Earth would be attacked if she did not lie, if she did not say that humans were weak, broken, and ready to be controlled. But they weren't. They were kind, curious, messy, yes, but not monsters. Jake had hugged her. Not to insult her, but to connect. Would that simple act now cause a war? The next day, she met Jake again. They stood in the quiet garden outside the embassy. She didn't smile. He noticed. "Something's wrong." She nodded. "My people. They're watching me. Watching you. Watching Earth." Jake's expression changed. Serious. Focused. "What do they want?" "Confirmation," Lyra said. "That your people are soft. Easy to control. No threat." Jake looked into her eyes. "And if they don't get that?" Lyra turned away. "They'll come. With warships. And they won't talk." Silence. A long silence. Then Jake said softly, "Are you going to give them what they want?" Lyra didn't answer. Her voice trembled. "I don't know." That evening, Jake took her to meet someone she hadn't expected. A human elder. Her name was Maya. A woman in a wheelchair, face full of lines, but eyes bright like stars. Maya held Lyra's hand and said, "You don't need power to change things, child. You need courage." Lyra asked, "What if my courage causes war?" Maya smiled gently. "Then maybe it's not courage you need first, but truth." Jake added, "They sent you here to study us. So study us. All of us. Not just books." not just fear. Lyra spent the next day walking alone. She watched people at markets, children helping strangers, a man singing to himself while sweeping the road. These people weren't soldiers. They were dreamers, builders, alive. She thought of her report, and how one word, just one sentence, could bring death. She closed her eyes and made a choice. That night, she activated the communicator again. The Chancellor appeared. Report. Lyra stood tall. I am still learning. I will need more time. Princess. She cut him off. Do not rush to judge a planet by its greetings. The Chancellor's eyes narrowed. We are not patient, Lyra. She stared back. Then maybe it's time we learn patience. She ended the call. Her hands were shaking, but her heart felt steady for the first time. The next morning, she met Jake again. He looked worried. What did you tell them? Lyra smiled faintly. The truth. That I don't have an answer yet. Jake looked confused. That's dangerous. She nodded. Yes, but it's honest. And honesty was a power her people never taught her. The ship came without sound. No warning. No welcome. Just a shadow over the Earth. A Zerlon warship appeared in Earth's orbit. Huge, cold, silent. Its surface was dark metal, and its weapons were armed, but hidden. It sent a message directly to Princess Lyra. Deliver the human named Jake Carter. Immediately, Lyra stood frozen as the words echoed through her communicator. Her hands turned cold. She had tried to stop this, but the council had come anyway. They didn't want peace. They wanted proof. And Jake had become the symbol of everything they feared. Inside the embassy, Jake was calm, even when she told him. They want me? He asked quietly. Lyra nodded. They say you must answer for your actions. The hug, the connection. They see it as manipulation. Jake gave a soft laugh. A hug might start an interstellar war? Lyra's voice shook. They don't understand peace the way you do. They only trust control. He looked into her eyes. Do you trust me? Yes, she whispered. Then let me go. Let them see who I really am. She stared at him, shocked. They could erase you from history. No name, no memory. You'd disappear. Jake smiled gently. Then I'll disappear for the right reason. The next morning, under a cloudy sky, a transport ship took Jake from Earth. Lyra stood beside him as he boarded. She didn't wear her royal armor. She didn't speak, but her eyes said everything. Jake gave her a small nod and one more smile. Then he was gone. On the Zerlon warship, the trial room was dark and full of cold light. High Chancellor Vexer sat on a tall throne. The council watched from a distance, no emotions, only judgment. Jake stood alone in the center. This human, the Chancellor began, broke all rules of first contact. He touched royalty. He spoke without structure. He infected the princess with foreign emotion. What do you say in your defense? Jake didn't blink. I didn't infect anyone. I welcomed her. Through physical contact. A violation. A hug, Jake said. Where I come from, it means friendship. Trust. Not control. Just care. The council murmured. The Chancellor leaned forward. And what is care worth when war begins? Jake answered simply, maybe it's worth everything. Lyra watched the trial from a separate room. She couldn't speak. Not yet. The law was clear. Only after the final verdict could she request a voice. But her fists were clenched. Her heart burned. They didn't see Jake as a man. They saw him as a virus. The Chancellor stood. Earth is too emotional, too loose, and this human is the proof. I sentence him to memory erasure. All record of his name, face, and actions will be deleted from Zerlon history. Gasps echoed. Jake stayed still. But before the sentence could be confirmed, Lyra stepped into the room. Guards blocked her path, but she raised her hand high. Her royal crest glowed. I invoke the right of witness. The room froze. The council whispered. She was now allowed to speak. She stood beside Jake. He is not a threat. He is not a trick. He is a lesson. The Chancellor growled. You break tradition. No, Lyra said, her voice growing stronger. I follow truth. You asked for weakness. I found strength. Not in weapons. In hearts. In this human. She looked at Jake. He hugged me, and it broke everything I thought I knew. But not in a bad way. In a better way. The council leader rose. Are you saying our teachings are wrong? I am saying they are incomplete. The council was silent. Then the chancellor asked, would you risk your title to protect this human? Lyra nodded. Yes. Would you risk exile? Yes. The chancellor stared at her for a long time. Then he sat back. The human will not be erased. But his fate remains undecided. You may leave for now. The trial was over. But the war between fear and understanding had only just begun. The hall was silent. But something had changed. Not outside. Inside her. Princess Lyra walked through the cold metal corridors of the Ziralon warship. She no longer felt pride in her armor or title. She felt fire. Not anger, but a deep purpose. Jake was safe, for now. But the council was waiting. Watching. Still ready to strike. And her people, her entire empire, still believed emotion was weakness. That had to change. Lyra entered the assembly chamber. A large room where young leaders trained and watched live decisions of the High Council. She had once sat there as a child, repeating lessons of control, discipline, and structure. Now she stood in front of those same young minds, with a message they had never heard before. She took off her crown and placed it on the ground. Gasps echoed through the hall. I am still your princess, she began. But I speak today not as royalty, not as a soldier, but as someone who learned something new. The lights dimmed. Her voice echoed. I was sent to Earth to study humans. We believed they were soft, too free, too wild, that they would break under pressure. She paused. But we were wrong. Some students frowned. Others leaned in. Lyra continued. Humans live with emotion, yes, but it doesn't make them weak. It makes them connected. They feel pain but still love. They lose everything and still rebuild. They do not rule through fear. They lead with care. One student raised his hand. But what if they betray that trust? Then they suffer together, Lyra said, and grow stronger. Together. Another asked, are you saying our way is wrong? I'm saying their way is also a way. And maybe, if we listened more, if we allowed ourselves to feel, we would not need to rule through fear. Back in the council chamber, Chancellor Vexer received reports of Lyra's speech. He watched the recording. He frowned. But others in the chamber, silent voices who had never dared speak, now whispered, she is right. She has changed. Maybe we should too. Later that day, Lyra found Jake standing alone in the observation deck. Earth was a small blue sphere below them. He smiled. So, how bad is it? Lyra smiled back. You may have started a revolution. Jake chuckled. Not the worst thing I've done. She stood beside him. They didn't erase you. They didn't punish me. That means they're starting to listen. Jake looked out the window. Sometimes, it only takes one person to stand up, and others follow. Lyra looked at her reflection in the glass. She no longer saw a perfect Ziralon heir. She saw someone new, someone stronger, not because of what she knew, but because of what she felt. And because of one human who gave her a hug instead of a salute. Later that night, Jake gave her a small gift. Again. This time, it wasn't a book or a map. It was a simple badge. It read, Leader of Kindness. Lyra smiled. What does this mean? Jake winked. It means you did what most people fear. You led by heart. She pinned the badge on her chest, next to her royal insignia. And for the first time, she felt like both. All eyes were on her. One word could save a planet. One word could doom it. Princess Lyra stood once again before the Ziralon High Council. The final decision had come. The council had reviewed her reports, her actions, her speech, and her bond with the human Jake Carter. Now they waited for her final words. One final sentence. She looked around the chamber. Thousands of Ziralon leaders were watching from across the galaxy. Some with hope, others with fear. And far below, floating in the darkness of space. Earth waited. Chancellor Vexer's voice was sharp. Do you declare Earth a threat? Or a friend? Lyra didn't speak right away. Her heart beat fast. She thought of her training, her titles, her duties. Then she thought of Jake's smile, the children's drawings, the soft hug that had changed everything. She stepped forward. I was trained to protect my people, she said. But protection does not always come through control. Sometimes, it comes through understanding. The chamber was still. Earth is not our enemy. It is our mirror. It shows us what we fear, but also what we are missing. Chancellor Vexer narrowed his eyes. So you declare them allies? Lyra took a deep breath. No, she said clearly. I declare them something more. She looked directly at the council. I declare them our teachers. Gasps echoed. Whispers filled the room. But Lyra's voice rose above them all. They showed me that strength is not only in ships and weapons. It is in kindness, in listening, in choosing peace when war is easier. She turned to the thousands watching. I make my choice not as a princess, but as someone who has seen a better future. And I choose connection. Silence fell. Then, slowly, one council member stood. Then another. And another. Not all. But enough. Chancellor Vexer's face darkened. But he said nothing. The old way was crumbling, and a new voice was rising. Later, Lyra walked out of the chamber, her heart lighter than ever before. Jake was waiting for her in the hall. He looked up, smiling nervously. So, did we survive? Lyra smiled back. Yes, you're not just safe. You're heard. Jake laughed. Remind me never to underestimate a hug again. She stepped closer. And this time she hugged him first. The gesture was simple, but in that moment it meant more than any treaty, any weapon, or any victory. It meant the galaxy was changing. And it started with one human, and one alien girl who dared to feel. Months later, a new station floated between Earth and Zeralon space. Not a war base, a peace hub. Human and Zeralon children played together. Scientists shared knowledge. Leaders sat at the same table. The first rule of the station was written in both languages. Peace begins with understanding. Lyra and Jake often walked the halls together. No guards, no armor, just equals. Every now and then, someone asked how it all began, and they always smiled, because the answer was so simple. It started with a hug.